This is your 2025-2026 winter forecast and year ahead outlook powered by the Lezak Recurring Cycle, the LRC. I'm meteorologist Gary Lezak with Weather 2020. There is a river there above us cycling, and there are two main phases of this year's pattern. Let's go over the details. I'll show you a little of the background, but let's start with those two phases of this year's wild weather pattern. This winter forecast issued December 5th. We've identified some big features in the atmosphere. It is a complex weather pattern. Every year, a unique pattern sets up, and my goodness, has one set up this year. Here are the two phases that we see in the pattern that will be dominating. The first dominant phase is phase 1, systems that intensify and may tap into the Arctic air. And it's already producing lake effect snow, storm systems across the Great Lakes into the inland areas of the Northeast and across the northern plains as well, and the Pacific Northwest. This phase of the pattern keeps it dry and warm in the southwestern part of the country. All right? Interesting classic La Nina setup, right? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. Also, there's a phase 2 that produces troughs in the west. Right, these are the two dominant phases of the pattern. In that first phase, phase 1, storm systems intensified from the Central Plains into the Great Lakes in this phase 1 part of the pattern. In that phase 2 part of the pattern, very wet in California, storm systems blast in. I'll show you an example of that in just a minute. And mostly dry in the south and east when phase 2 develops, but that's only a 10-day stretch. The other phase is dominant. We'll get to what happens when phase 2 intensifies in just a minute. How is this all possible? I discovered back in 1987, 1988 in that winter, this is Oklahoma City. Take a look at this. This is a mural that's on my wall to this day. Snow in November, a 1-foot snowstorm in December, a major ice storm in December, another 1-foot snowstorm with drifting, same barbecue grill, but one had wind, so drifting snow there. And then snow in March. In Oklahoma City, 30 inches of snow. It was not a coincidence. These storms were related, and I've learned, and we've been bringing it to you, the new technology of the cycling weather pattern. It's all part of a big atmospheric jigsaw. There are fringe corner pieces that are very important. La Nina, AO, NAO, El Nino, that's ENSO, MJO, and PDO, AAO, and PNA. But most forecasters rely on ENSO, the La Nina and El Nino, and the AO, NAO, and other features. They're missing the centerpiece of the big atmospheric jigsaw, the LRC. That's what we're sharing with you here, but there are other factors. The pattern of cycling, the LRC sets up every year in the fall, and it is just now set up, and we are just now learning about it. It'll cycle all the way through next September. So the sweet spot, good news for if you're a business and you need to know what's going to happen January through June, natural gas traders, agriculture, planting, growing, and harvest season, we can bring you the accurate forecast. 90% accurate at predicting when tornadoes are going to happen. Look at this chart. Every 6 weeks last year, from October 5th, 2024 to September 2nd this year, you can see that we had tornadoes in October. About 6 weeks later, tornadoes in November. A major outbreak around Christmas. December 28th was that major outbreak. Then we predict by February all these others that are going to happen every 6 weeks. And here is a perfect example of the pattern that is cycling. Every 41 days, roughly, 42 days, so every 6 weeks, we had tornadoes right on schedule. All right? You can't make that up. Here's another way to look at this cycling pattern known as the LRC. A storm hits California October 14th. A storm hits California November 17th. About every half cycle, every month or so, California is going to have an opportunity for some big rains, especially mid-January, mid-February, mid-March. Those 3 time frames are likely to have a significant storm systems and possibly mid to late December as well. So here are the fringe pieces of this big atmospheric jigsaw. Imagine it's a 1,000-piece puzzle, and most of those pieces are right in the middle, all right? But let's look at these fringe pieces that are important. ENSO, the El Nino Southern Oscillation Index. This is the warming or cooling of the tropical Pacific Ocean. And you can see here, right around December, it reached a negative minus 0.7 and minus 0.8. That's La Nina conditions. However, it's not a La Nina winter because we are now starting to see it already warming, and by January, February, March's average, it's near neutral, and there may be an El Nino next winter, right? But this is just an influence on the pattern, all right? More on that in the coming weeks. The Arctic Oscillation and North Atlantic Oscillation, you can see it oscillate near this zero line. When it dips negative, Arctic air is more likely to dip south, and that's what's been happening. If it dips deep negative, then we have Arctic blasts getting even farther south, and the jet stream gets energized and storms get stronger. We'll see if that happens this winter. The North Atlantic Oscillation, the same thing. When the AO goes into higher positive territory and the NAO goes into higher positive territory, then the Arctic air is held up and it warms up and storm systems are usually weaker. The two phases of the weather pattern I told you, but one of them is going to intensify. The phase 2 of the weather pattern, the winter versions of phase 2 will likely feature some blocking up here in Alaska and Greenland, and that'll allow for the trough to dig way south and produce an ice storm, more likely mid-January or mid-February. Something to watch. All right, could happen in December as well. And you can see here a major storm when the flow amplifies. That's likely due to or coincides with that negative AO that would be developing. Drought is either expanding or contracting. Here is the drought index on September 30th. Here it is on December 1st. If anything, in Florida, you can see here the drought is increasing a little bit. Otherwise, right now we're still monitoring this closely for any increases or decreases. The first 60 days of the pattern was very wet in California and North Dakota. In the east, it's been near average, but with the cold weather, it doesn't take much precipitation to produce snow, and there has been some lake effect snows going on. So we'll see about this trend. This is what's happened in the first 60 days of this year's pattern. Temperature-wise, it has been warmer until the first week of December, and now these anomalies are going to change a little bit. But the first 60 days were much warmer, and that is likely to return this winter. Impacts on agriculture, these windows for phase 1 and these windows for phase 2. We may be 3 to 5 days off on these. I think I'd move these up a little bit. So mid-January, mid-February, mid-March, mid to late April, late May, and late June are when phase 2 and that trough in the west will show up. That could lead to some severe thunderstorms. And dry periods impact agriculture. Wet periods influence field work delays, ponding, elevated disease pressure. So if you're in agriculture, you know you've been using our models to help you predict what's going to happen for your planting, growing, and harvest season. We have a patent pending model. Our patent pending LRC model is the only model in the world that uses cycling weather patterns. We have a forecast all the way to a year ahead right now, which will be accurate from January to September, and especially January to June for agriculture. And then during the summer, during the tropical season, it helps us predict hurricanes as well. All right, our LRC model for the entire United States for the percentage of average precipitation, January through June, shows fairly dry across South Dakota, back into Wyoming and Colorado. This could be a problem for the ski areas. We're only expecting 60 to 80% of average snowfall in the ski areas in Colorado. California should get wet with those storms every 30 days or so, and southwest Texas is dry. In the agriculture belt, again, it's South Dakota, Nebraska, the center of where there may be a problem for drought stress, and then possibly from Illinois back towards Missouri. However, this has been shrinking, so we may not have as big of a problem in here. We'll see if it's shrinking or contracting. Temperature-wise, our model is showing near to above average temperatures over the agriculture belt, as you can see here. And for specific in Nebraska, and if you'd like to have this, you can get it. Go to weather2020.com And we do have this model available. You can go down to your state and county and get your weather predictions that update every week. 7 to 9 inches of rain in western Nebraska, up to 18 inches of rain around Omaha between January and June. However, that is below average. 70% to 90% of average for the entire state of Nebraska. We also can go day by day, week by week, or month by month. This is the week by week outlook. End of the year, a wet, and last week of the year, holiday season could be wet in Nebraska. So that's when storm systems could hit. Then dry to begin the year, 3 wet weeks, 3 dry weeks. If you're planning on planting, you might want to wait for the first week of April here. First, second, third week of April, some drier weather after a wet period. Or you might want to do it right before that. So you can help your planning. Snowfall-wise, this is additional snowfall for what has happened so far, which isn't much in Nebraska, especially central and western. 11 inches to 20 inches of snow forecast by our model, and we have another version, our higher version snow potential, 24 to 47 inches, but we favor the lower one. So conclusions of this winter forecast so far, the fact that it took Boulder, and Denver, Colorado until December 3rd to record their first inch of snow is a direct symptom of this year's pattern. This will have major implications for fire season if this trend continues. Colorado ski areas have moved through the first cycle with only 30 to 40% of their average snowpack. I'm expecting only 60 to 80% for the entire season. And the western trough of phase 2, combined with the potential for a jet stream amplification, causes that increased risk of the major ice storm setup. We are still analyzing the cadence of this pattern, learning more every single week. So keep that in mind. That is the winter forecast. That's what we know right now. This is a wild, unusual pattern. Every year is unique. Every year is different. All right, and this is so different. We'll figure out some more details and know a lot more in the coming weeks, and we'll update this winter forecast guide early next year. All right, happy holidays, everyone. There's your winter forecast. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm meteorologist Gary Lezak with Weather 2020. Go to weather2020.substack.com, weather2020.substack.com, and get real good information that I bring to you each week in a special Weather 2020 intelligence report. In the next year, you will learn about this breakthrough technology. I'm meteorologist Gary Lezak. Have a great week.